We are talking about Tuello questioning June. Finally, we finally got this debriefing. I actually wanted a little more of this debriefing stuff because really, I like this. I want to know the kinds of questions that Tuello is asking, and not just not just this piece that we got. I was a little
Yeah.
like, but it's okay. She's given him info about Billy the bartender, and Tuello was just really blown away that she didn't have any outside coordination to pull this off. Like she didn't do it alone, obviously. It was a massive undertaking by many different people, but she facilitated it. There are many people that didn't make it out alive from the situation. Um and her answer to this is simply, it was the only thing I could do, because she made a promise that they were gonna hurt.
As much as we did.
Mm-hmm.
I was very trepidatious with the Billy talk.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did it not make you nervous? I mean, maybe I'm just being ridiculous. I'm not sure. I just don't know. Like, is that not going to come back on Billy? Like, how is Tuello using this information? Like, that's my fear, is that, so like, we know Larry's on the council. Nick's in Gilead. There are people, Janine, who knows what's happening with her. And Billy, there's Billy who facilitated this. Who knows if he's still alive? But if he is he now in trouble? Because we don't know enough about Tuello and what his goals are here.
Yep.
What is he doing with this information? Obviously, he is trying to take down Gilead. Obviously, he really wants to know about this Gilead structure. But, what is he doing exactly? And she is just let me tell you everything, which I get. I totally get why she just wants to, unload how she did everything she did to someone like Tuello. But it makes just, I don't know, the description of Billy really freaked me out. I was like, wow, we're using his name and his description. Okay, thank you. Maybe you could have just said bartender guy. I don't know. It made me, for June, who seems so hesitant to trust. She seems very quick to tell Tuello this information, and maybe that's fine. I don't really know if I'm being in my own head about it, but it just seemed weird when she described him. I was like, whoa, Billy's still there, maybe.
No, that makes perfect sense. Exactly, because we don't know whether or not Billy is still there. There's a strong presumption that he is still in Gilead. Also, she's divulging all of this to Tuello, who she has no prior relationship with. So there's just this inherent trust built in somehow.
Right.
Which one can
because
presume,
he happens to be on a certain side. Huh.
Because he happens to be on a certain side. There's also I'm going to operate under the presumption that that Moira has divulged a trust in him, and ergo I will be trusting of him, but we don't get to see that, so this is purely an extrapolation. But yeah, ultimately, exactly like you said, Scarlett, it comes down to he's on a certain side.
Do you know what I think it might be that I do pick up from Tuello? It's that it almost seems personal to him. Like by the end of this episode, more specifically, I don't think it's in the scene where you can see that board for a half a second of his very FBI detective-esque board of information and players that he seems to be trying to take down. Or again, I don't know what his motivations are, but it almost seems personal to him in some way. Obviously this affected him somehow, and to me it almost screams like he missed the mark the first time, and here we are, and now he's got to make up for it. From what I could read off the board, it was very Sons of Jacob detail oriented, which makes sense that it would be, but I wonder if that was his role before and he didn't stop it quick enough, and now he has this obsession with trying to make it right in a very similar way that June has this obsession to make it end. It almost seems like that was the inherent trust that she gave him, was that not only are they on the same side, they're very, very much operating under the same tunnel vision goal, more or less, although we don't know enough about Tuello to be sure. But I think we've seen enough now to realize that he wasn't yay team Serena. He's I need to put all these people in places in which I can use them to get my goal, but I just don't know what this goal is, other than anti-Gilead of some sort, I would assume.
What exactly does this fucking guy do?
That's a very, very good question. And I want to circle back to like something Marjorie said, is that it seems personal for Tuello. So what is it that this guy does, and why does this feel personal for him? It very much reeks of he is an ambassador of sorts to the United States because he happened to find himself in a position that he was across the Canadian border, could act as a representative, and happened to have like had some sort of market loss. So it would explain why the vendetta against bringing down Gilead is so personal. It would also explain why, like, who the fuck is this guy anyway? Like, we know he's a consulate of some sort to the United States as it currently stands, but we don't have any sort of real structure for him.
Yeah, in the Handmaid's Tale wiki page, it just has him listed as representative of the U.S. government in exile.
Yeah, and that makes me think that he was government before. And that is the personal part of they didn't get him, but they took everything else. And I'm sure he has a whole lot of personal vendetta that he's trying to enact. This vengeance that we're seeing with June by the end of this episode is very similar, I think, to Tuello. That's my guess.
I'm just wondering if he is maybe one of the last U.S. government officials left.
I think he is.
It's kind of like that Battlestar Galactica thing where the what was it, the Secretary of Education or something like that ends up being the president because they went through all of the people in the government, like they were all like, they were all killed in the Battlestar Galactica thing that happened. I can't remember what happened.
Right.
It's been so long since I've seen that. Forgive
Also,
me.
it's Battlestar Galactica. It was a decade ago.
I'm
Let's let it
surprised
ride.
you saw it at all, Scarlett.
Can you believe that shit? I know.
I'm
I just happened to
impressed.
come home one night and Mr. Scarlet was watching it and I'm like, all right, I'll sit in for this. And yeah, I stuck with it to the very end and even went back to watch the pieces that I missed. Crazy,
That's
right? Doesn't
impressive.
really hold up for me though.
Fair. I will.
That was one of
Noted.
my attempted quarantine rewatches. And I was like,
Oh.
oh, I'm so bummed out. I can't watch this. It's just,
man.
no. But anyway, so if he is one of the last remaining representatives of the United States, and I guess as that representative, he is one of the few people left to try to piece together who exactly they need to have intel on and who exactly they need to try to eventually nail in these prosecutions that are sure to come. That's all. That's it. I don't know what his exact role is, but I think that he is an information seeker at the moment, and just him seeking that information helps him gain a better understanding of who the hell he is dealing with. And he is doing a balancing act, I think, as much as June had done a balancing act in Gilead, except he's doing it in Canada, and he's got like June over here, and then he's got Fred and Serena over here. And I think he just wants to preserve the connections that he has because, like we've said before, and they've said in the show, that Gilead is this like black hole. It's just nothingness. We don't get intel. We don't get information. They don't have any idea about the power structure. So he's going to hold on to this, these power structure ties that he has, like his life depends on it, because they just have so very little. I mean, a bunch of refugees coming across the border from all over the place isn't really going to provide him with very much. June is like the goose that lays the golden egg for this guy.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic point because like she's able to give an honest, candid evaluation of the power structure because she was engrossed within it, which is something that only a couple of other refugees have been able to afford. Emily and Moira being two of them, but from everything that we've seen, they've given as much testimony as they can, and Tuello would not to say he has no more use for them, but he needs more information, and June is going to be able to afford that.
I think even more important than what she knows about Gilead's power structure, she knows everything there is to know about Fred and Serena.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's Tuello's best playing card right now is Fred. And that's why he's dealing with Serena and ever has been dealing with Serena to begin with. I think I the more I look at Tuello from the beginning, the more I see Serena as just a pawn of many that he has on the board. And we got a glimpse of his board, and there was another side of the board that was even bigger and had other people on it, and who knows who those people are. And I think that Serena, he offered her some kind of deal where she said yes. And I am definitely wondering by the end of this episode if that deal, I don't think it's Tuello's baby. Let me be clear about that. But I know that's a rumor that's happening. But I am definitely thinking that it is not Fred's baby after this episode. There is some coded language happening, and it could entirely be in context. It makes sense. And in a different context, it also makes sense. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And I'm wondering if Tuello is just if that's the case, if he was provided this pregnancy for her, not with his own child, but just a pregnancy. Sperm donor was the specific word that Serena used. If he provided a sperm donor for Serena so she could get pregnant, and then she brings Fred over and then gets to have this pregnancy, and that was part of the deal. Although I don't know, because her whole thing was Nicole at that point, but whatever, I don't know.
If Fred is not the father, and if Tuello isn't the father, and I know that we had some conjecture earlier when we were doing our season 4 predictions about maybe Tuello's the father at conjugal visits, they had this very clear connection. If it's anyone other than Fred or Tuello, then we're delving into soap opera territory.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not saying no, actually. It could totally be someone other than Fred or Tuello.
You think that
that's
what
I'm saying.
Those,
a sperm donor. It would be a literal sperm donor. I think he got her. Yeah. That's what he offered her. Treason and coconuts was in vitro. He said there's ways to get pregnant, Serena.
If that were the case, though, then it wouldn't be just a matter of everyone definitively assuming that Fred were the father. There would have been some understanding that she would have already started to undergo in vitro fertilization, that she would have started to undergo. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter who.
Tuello knows. Well, who else? Everyone else would assume it's Fred's. As Serena.
We have to bear in mind that Serena hasn't made any allusion to the parentage being anything other than Fred.
She didn't want to tell Fred. I don't think that was the plan, remember? So I think that Rita telling Fred fucked up Serena's plan. If Fred's not in fact the father, but now he thinks she's the father, now she can't explain that, I'm just thinking that would make more sense. I'm not saying it's definite, but I'm saying that it would make sense that if Serena knew Fred wasn't the father, why she didn't want to have him involved from the beginning. Obviously, if he is the father, there's other reasons why she didn't want him involved. It would make sense that way too. But then when Rita goes and does that, it almost sounds in this episode like Tuello's annoyed with the way that played out. And we'll get to it in that scene with his verbiage, but he sounds like, well, now that Fred knows he's the father and has been requesting to see you or whatever. But if Rita, in doing that, messed up Serena's plan, it also messed up Tuello's. They had some kind of plan. When he says, you help me and you, it's because they already were trying to help each other in this way. It's just very coded language that makes me think it's possible that there could be in vitro fertilization. And it is, in fact, a sperm donor's is the father. And she was always going to just raise this baby on her own in Canada.
It's possible, of course. However, I don't think it's probable. And it's primarily because when Serena charges Tuello in the courtyard and is like, I need to cut all ties from Fred.
That's true. Yeah.
And Tuello's like, I don't think that's going to happen. She's like, nope, that's it. I'm done with Fred. And he goes, hey, bombshell here. You're pregnant. And her face drops. There's no joy there. It's not a matter of oh my God, the in vitro fertilization worked. If there really were this hidden subcontext plot of in vitro fertilization,
forgot about that phase.
Then there would have been a moment there of her being euphoric, to be entirely honest.
Right.
But because that revelation came on the heels of her saying she wanted nothing to do with Fred, and Twill's like, no, you kind of got to deal with Fred, and here's why, and putting that information onto us. It's definitely painting the picture to us as for the audience that Fred is the father. Do I want him to be the father? Absolutely not. I want him to, like, I would rather him just fester in the fact that he can never parent a child. Hard stop. But it seems like all the illusions are there that he very much is.
Yeah. It's very much specifically that reaction. She wouldn't be that surprised if she was already wondering if she was pregnant. You know what I mean? She would at least know the wheels were in motion.
Exactly. If she were already going through going through in vitro fertilization, if she were already going through all of those steps, then her being pregnant wouldn't be such a gut punch.
So as a little aside, I just realized that moment where Serena finds out that she's pregnant from Tuello cracks me up in a whole new way, because we know Serena, and we know that she looks upon a child as absolutely nothing but a blessed event that should be wanted at all costs.
Right.
Yeah.
And now she gets pregnant with this baby that, like, fucks up her life in some really interesting ways. And now she gets why abortion may be an option for some women. She's bringing a baby, if she stays with Fred, into an abusive relationship.
Oh my God, you're right.
In a totalitarian regime, if they decide to send her back there somehow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Can't think of a better fucking reason to have an abortion, personally. Whoa. Not that anybody needs to have a specifically important reason. You have one for your own personal reasons,